Joining us on the broadcast today is former Marine Corps pilot Mike Pedersen. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on Times Now. A very big development has taken place as far as this war is concerned. Iran has claimed that it has shot down 2 warplanes of the United States of America, and 1 American airman is missing. So I want to understand from you, firstly, how did you react when you got to know this news, when you got to know about this claim by Iran? Do you think Iran has defense system that is capable of shooting down an F-15E?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, my first reaction was a little bit of a flashback to my experience during Desert Storm 35 years ago. It doesn't seem like it. But there is always probably going to be surface-to-air defense systems. We're not going to get 100% of them. And, you know, we're basically a few weeks into this conflict. Whether it's shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles, which really the F-15 would have had been kind of low in altitude. They could still have some surface-to-air missiles that are radar-guided. You know, the F-15 Strike Eagle probably was up at an altitude where that seems to make a little more sense. But to answer your question, yeah, I wasn't too surprised. I kind of felt that we've been fortunate over the last few weeks. It's not a zero-risk atmosphere and environment. I won't really want to say it was bound to happen, but the risk is always there. You're not going to get 100% of that, even though we have air superiority is pretty much what we have. That doesn't mean that we have 100% of surface-to-air capability destroyed. So there's always a risk. Okay.
Walk us through step by step what happens the moment an American fighter jet goes down in enemy-controlled territory, and you know, what really happens?
Well, the aircrew themselves, in this case, 2 of them, a pilot and a Wizzo, there is some hopefully mutual support there. It's a little interesting that we rescued one very, very quickly, and the other one, it's been a day so far. So that is alarming. You would think that they would land somewhat close to each other, but that's not always the case. A lot of things happen. Could be injury on the ejection, wind, the terrain, how quickly the first one, the pilot apparently was rescued first and picked up. But there's a lot of factors. I'm pretty sure they had a wingman. I don't think they were flying as a single ship. So immediately, the first reaction would have been their wingman would have been the immediate on-scene combat SAR, combat search and rescue mission commander. That probably would last for a while till they could get, and I imagine it was probably AWACS overhead. They've got all the personnel, the training, the communication assets to end up quickly overtaking the overall, you know, mission commander role, if you will, for the combat SAR effort. So things happen very, very quickly. The wheels are turning. We, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, that has aviation assets. We train for this on a regular basis, but it's always interesting when it happens for real.
Do we have any clarity yet on who is that missing airman, the pilot or the weapon systems officer? Because it was F-15E that we are talking about, which is a 2-seater fighter jet.
Correct. And I flew the F-18 Delta in the Marine Corps, which had a pilot in the front and a Wizzo in the back seat. So I was the Wizzo. In this case, it's I think it's pretty well known at this point that the aircrew rescued was the pilot, and the one still missing is the Wizzo. And we don't know if it's a male or female. That could be either for sure. And right now it seems like it's the pilot that was rescued, and it's the Wizzo that we're still looking for.
What are
backseater.
Okay. What are some of the steps that follow in the rescue operation? For example, in a situation like this where we are right now?
Well, it's basically two different areas. The aircrew themselves have their mission to do, and then the combat SAR effort has their mission to do. The aircrew themselves, first and foremost, is survival, which basically means trying to hide, find, evade. We do go through extensive what they call SEER training. I think you've heard that on a couple other networks already. The SEER training is survival, evasion, resistance, and escape, and that's the training that every aircrew or anybody in a job that has potential for capture or be in a survival situation. So the SEER training starts to kick in very, very quickly. So initially it's survival, and communication is key. So the seat, when it ejected, that would have sent out a signal. So they are pretty sure that there were two seats that left the jet. And the aircrew themselves, I mean, the first thing you want to do is to try to get away from that site as quickly as possible. Hopefully they're physically able to do that. There are times that you can eject that you could be physically incapacitated, and I don't think that's the case in this point, because the aircraft would not be too far away, very visible, I'm sure, as it was coming down. Two parachutes coming down, very visible. So the first thing that aircrew are basically taught to do is try to get away from that site where your parachute came down. If you have a chance to bury it, great, but I probably wouldn't myself waste the time on that. I'm pretty sure that, in that wide open area, folks would have seen where that parachute came down. But again, I think the biggest factor is to try to get away as fast as you can, hopefully a couple miles away, if possible, from that site where you landed. Immediately try to find a place to hide and establish communications as quickly as you can.
Now, in this case, Iran is claiming that this particular fighter jet, F-15E, was shot down in southern Iran. I want to understand from you what to expect if the airman falls into the enemy territory, enemy hands. Already he is in the enemy territory, it seems, but if he falls in the enemy hands, then what is the protocol? What is the procedure that one follows?
Oh, that's a dynamic situation there very, very quickly. And again, it could be a female aircrew. We don't know that yet. I think the only thing we know for sure right now is that the pilot was rescued, and this aircrewman or crewwoman is the Wizzo, the backseater. That's a dynamic situation right there on how they're treated. The Iranians absolutely most likely want to take that aircrewman alive. That's a completely different situation for them. It gives them a bargaining chip, et cetera. I don't think our overall efforts are going to change much, but that's to be seen if that happens. Let's hope that's the worst case there, as long as the aircrew survived. And we don't know that either. That's a possibility that, something happened during the ejection. But should the aircrewman get captured alive, that's definitely a feather in the cap for them. They will use it as a PR tool as much as they can. We've seen that in past wars and conflicts. That's kind of an aircrewman's worst nightmare at that point. I know in Desert Storm that, I played that scenario through, and all of our aircrew many, many times on what you would do on capture. We're trained through the official SEER training that all aircrew go through on all services to evade and then resist as much as possible. But at the same time, if you're captured alive, your mission is to try to stay alive. But it's a very, very dynamic, difficult situation.
For the rescue mission, what is the kind of window that agencies really work with in a situation like this? Because the fate of the airmen is still unknown.
Yeah, the window is wide open. I mean, it's only been a day. I know sometimes, those of us that are watching this unfold in real time, that it seems like a long time, but in reality right now, it's only been one day. So I think we need to give it some time. There's some window for optimism there that the air crewman, the Wizzo, has not, been captured yet. We don't know that for sure. That is definitely one of the possibilities.
Okay.
I'm hoping that the air crew is just in a hiding situation at this point. That's what we've got to hope for at this point.
Okay. And why do you think America is not really going public about this entire, point, this entire issue?
The actual shoot down?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's critical to keep the communications down and focus on the effort. I mean, it is all hands effort at this point with all services. It's almost like the show stops and the whole entire effort, which is great to be an American air crewman, to know that should that happen in a shoot down, that the effort would be 100%, and the focus is on hopefully getting that air crewman back.
Is there a rule that is followed in cases like these also? At what point does Pentagon go public about a missing airman, and how do they really coordinate in terms of the officials who are involved in the rescue mission?
Again, we've got to keep everything pretty confidential at this point. The entire effort is to, get that air crewman back to safety. And there's a lot going on. So it's a very high classified situation for sure. So we don't want too much information out right now while this effort is ongoing. Also got to realize that there's a family back home that is praying and hoping for the best. So there's a lot of dynamics going on in this situation.
Do you see it as a setback for Donald Trump in this war, given the kind of statements he has made?
No, I don't see it as a setback at all. There was always this risk. It's not a surprise that something like this could happen. We knew it. The air crewmen knew it. I think our country knew it. So it's the risk we take in a conflict like this. So it's now we're multitasking. We can still continue the mission. We will continue the mission. I know President Trump is focused on getting this to a completion and trying to get the Iranian leadership to come to the bargaining table. And we'll see. I mean, I think we're getting close.
Okay. Donald Trump, the American president, in fact, in an interview has claimed that this loss of this particular fighter jet F-15E is not really going to, in any way affect the negotiations with Iran.
He's correct. And we know that as air crewmen. We know that's the risk. That's part of our mission. So he's absolutely correct. We are focused on, as a country, and our leaders and the commander-in-chief and the planners for this, the operators for this mission. He's absolutely correct. It's not going to deter him whatsoever.
But if we do see this airman getting captured by Iranian officials and there is a prisoner of war, in that case, what happens?
Well, and we think about that. That's going to be behind the scenes in the negotiations. The public will probably never fully know the result of that. I'm sure, if we fast forward, a month, 2, 3 months from now, and that was the situation. Yes, we've seen that in past conflicts with POWs. That's certainly some bargaining chips that are on the table and for negotiations. And it's an interesting factor and part of the equation. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but it's certainly going to be a factor.
Okay. Drawing from your 66 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm, what key lessons should U.S. commanders apply, in your opinion, in this multi-domain campaign against Iran's air defenses, drone swarms, as well as missile threats?
Great question. You're never going to get to the point where you eliminate 100% of surface-to-air threat. It could be shoulder-fired missiles. It could be any number of things. We're not sure what shot down this F-15 Strike Eagle. I don't think they were down too low in altitude. I know during Desert Storm, as we got near the end of the air portion of it and just before the ground war started, I know we pushed down in altitude lower and lower and lower. And the Iraqis had, remember, 6 months during Desert Storm and Desert Shield to ingrain their surface-to-air threat. So we were getting lower and lower in altitude at that point. I don't think the Strike Eagle was possibly down as low as we were going in Desert Storm. In Desert Storm, we were, open to AAA, the shoulder-fired SAM. So I don't know. We'll find out eventually, what brought down this Strike Eagle. I'm kind of leaning towards a radar surface-to-air missile at this point because of the altitude that I think maybe the Strike Eagle was at. That's just an educated guess on my part. But to go back to your question, we're never going to completely eliminate the surface-to-air threat. We could talk about air superiority all the time. We're pretty close, and I know President Trump has said we have air superiority. I think that's a pretty good statement to make. I'm fine with that. But that doesn't mean that the surface-to-air threat is eliminated. There's always going to be that risk, and plenty, probably thousands of surface-to-air shoulder-fired missiles that could certainly take down a jet like that. I had a couple close calls in Desert Storm with, heat-seeking surface-to-air missiles that were probably shoulder-fired. And the AAA, I don't know how much AAA they have there, but it's probably a missile, whether it's a heat-seeker or a radar-guided missile. But we'll know soon enough.
Okay. And in your opinion, what should be Washington's response to what Iran has been claiming so far? So yesterday, before this news came out, Iran had claimed that it has also shot down an F-35, which is called as the Ghost in the Skies.
Yeah, I saw that claim. We haven't really responded to that, and there's no news that we can attribute that, any truth to that claim right there. Certainly, if I was on the Iranian side and I had any kind of chance to throw out, let's call it propaganda, any chance to throw that out, certainly to try to make the United States look bad, they're going to do that. There's no record of and news of an F-35 being shot down. This looks like the Strike Eagle and the A-10 yesterday, unfortunately more down to the southeast. And then the helicopter that we saw some videos of being shot at that was still able to get back to a base to land.
Okay. One last question before we let you go. Just now, U.S. President Donald Trump has put out a post saying, remember when I gave Iran 10 days to make a deal or open up the Hormuz Strait? Time is running out. 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. Glory be to God, President Donald Trump. How do you read this?
He's a strategist. He's a negotiator. He likes to keep our enemy on their heels. And he's certainly pretty good at that. And that's certainly what he's doing right there.
Just a pressure tactic?
Yes.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mike Pedersen. Appreciate you joining us here on Times Now. Wonderful speaking with you, and you really helped our viewers understand what really happens in a situation like the one that we saw with an American fighter jet yesterday, and what are the likely scenarios right now. Thank you for speaking with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and please say a prayer not only for the U.S. aircrew there, but for their families too.
Absolutely. Thank you.